Hello everyone, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto awakened the lost Uzumaki Dojutsu after being betrayed? Part 3. A month had passed since the formation of Team 7 officially became a team. And let's just say it wasn't what the trio thought it would be. Even Naruto was quite surprised with how well the team meshed together. Naruto would have bet anything that Sasuke and Sakura would have butted heads with him at every turn, but surprisingly, they didn't. Well, most of the time, anyway. They were like a well-oiled machine, and Kakashi was happy for his surrogate little brother. It seemed like everything was working out for his team. Even during their dreaded D-rank missions. True to Naruto's word, he helped train the two after their team building and D-rank missions, if you wanted to call those chores missions. Naruto picked up Kakashi's slack when it came to help train Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto taught both of them the tree walking exercise, and to Naruto's surprise, Sakura was able to get it down on her first try without breaking a sweat. Sasuke, on the other hand, took him almost a week to complete, which kinda irked him. But Naruto put his mind at ease, telling him it was because he had a much higher chakra reserve than Sakura. But with the revelation of Sakura's chakra control being so high, Naruto told Kakashi to help train her in genjutsu. With her control, it would be perfect along with medical ninjutsu, but that'll come at a later time. Sasuke, on the other hand, after completing the tree climbing exercise, wanted to pick up kenjutsu after seeing Naruto practice his katas while waiting on Kakashi one day. Sasuke already had a few swords back at his compound, so it wouldn't be hard for him to get one. So, 2 or 3 times a week after they are done with their missions and team building, Naruto and Sasuke would do light spars so Sasuke could practice, and like Naruto, Sasuke was a natural with a blade in his hand. He was still raw, but with the proper training and practice he could be a force with a blade in his hand. During this month, Naruto wasn't slacking off either. He started to do the leaf exercise for both lightning and fire. Naruto already completed the first 2 steps for wind, water, and earth, and like Hiruzen, he wanted to master all the affinities. Even though both lightning and fire have taken longer compared to the first 3 affinities, it shouldn't take much longer with his help of the Kage Bushins. With the help of the Kage Bushins, it'll only take 2 more weeks at most to have completed the first step for both. That wasn't the only thing Naruto was working on, and Kakashi took notice of complex seal that had him intrigued. Kakashi asked what type of seal it was, but Naruto was cryptic with his answers, only telling him, "My legacy," or something along that line. Kakashi left it alone, knowing Naruto would tell him when he was ready. Our favorite blonde, along with his teammates and Junin Sensei, were at Training Ground 3, finishing up some team building exercises and daily workouts Kakashi had them do. Naruto and Sasuke viewed them as a warm-up, but Sorka, still behind both her teammates on the physical side, was exhausted. Even though she has been making big strides in her development, she was still far behind both Naruto and Sasuke. But in due time, she'd eventually catch up. At least she hoped she could. All 3 genin were taking a break and talking when Kakashi walked up to the 3. "Alright, team, to finish out our day, let's head over and get another D-rank mission," Kakashi said while closing his book only to receive 3 glares in return. "Why do we have to keep doing those chores? Those aren't missions. I'm tired of those damn things," Naruto exclaimed while standing up, and Sasuke and Sakura couldn't help but nod. "I agree with the Dobi on this one, Kakashi-sensei. Can't we get an actual mission that doesn't involve catching that damn devil cat?" asked Sasuke, looking up at his sensei, ignoring Naruto, who said, "Hey," to his Dobi comment. "Yeah, Kakashi-sensei. I mean, while I don't really mind doing some of the missions we get, they just seem a little tedious at times," said Sakura, agreeing with her 2 teammates. Kakashi looked at his 3 genin and sighed and said, while I agree with some of the things you said, the main purpose of the D rank missions are to help build your teamwork. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we can go on our first C rank. Kakashi ni, are you just being lazy, or is it because the new ICHA just came out, and you just want to read it? Naruto said while giving an incredulous look at the sheepish Kakashi. Ma Naruto, it's because you all need to refine your teamwork. I swear to Kami, said Kakashi as he crossed his fingers behind his back without the three noticing. What are you talking about, Naruto? What is ICHA? Asked Sakura with a confused look, and Sasuke looked at Naruto, with a raised eyebrow showing he wanted to know too. Naruto looked at the two and replied, Ika is basically a novel filled with that Kakashi ni religiously reads. You both saw him reading it multiple times. The two gave Kakashi incredulous looks while Kakashi scratched the back of his head sheepishly. It is not Naruto. It's amazing literature that was written by the best author throughout the elemental nations. Don't disrespect the magnificent ICHA series and call it, or you will be only doing D ranks for the next 2 months. Kakashi stated while Naruto rolled his eyes while his two other teammates' sweat dropped. Yeah, okay Kakashi ni. I'm getting myself a C rank mission, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Our favorite blonde said matter-of-factly. I'd like to see you try. I'm the Junin sensei, and my word is final. Kakashi replied with his patented eye smile. Oh yeah, Naruto exclaimed with fire in his cerulean blue eyes. Yeah, replied back Kakashi with the same fire in his onyx eyes while he got in Naruto's face, and somehow there was electricity coming from both of their eyes fighting for dominance while they were walking away from the other two confused genin towards the Hokage tower. Sasuke and Sakura could only look on to Naruto and Kakashi's retreating forms, not taking their eyes off of each other. We have such a weird team, Sakura said to herself while they both left to catch up to their sensei and blonde-haired teammate. 20 minutes later, Hokage Tower. Naruto, get down from there. Now, Kakashi said as he was looking at his surrogate brother. Sakura giggled, seeing what Naruto was doing, and even Sasuke had a smirk on his face seeing what Naruto was doing. Hiruzen was smoking his pipe while looking on with a smile along with the other Chunin that were handing out missions and looked at the scene that was playing out in front of them. Naruto was sitting on the ceiling upside down with his arms crossed, hunched over, and faced away from everyone. No, not until we get a C rank. You heard GG. We would have to catch that bastard of a cat. I refuse. I hate cats. Naruto exclaimed while Kakashi got a tick mark as he pinched the bridges of his nose. So Naruto wants a C rank, Kakashi-san. I am surprised it took him this long to ask, haha. The old Hokage chuckled as Kakashi turned towards the chuckling Hokage. It seems so, Hokage-sama. But I told them in a couple more weeks while we refine their teamwork, then I'll get them a C rank. Kakashi stated as he glared his one eye at Naruto, who was glancing towards the two talk and turn abruptly when Kakashi glared at him, which made Kakashi sigh and shake his head. You and I both know your team is ready, Kakashi-san. So what is the hesitation? Asked Hiruzen, looking at the one-eyed shinobi in front of him. Before Kakashi could say anything, Naruto exclaimed, it's because of the perverted book that just came out. Now he wants to make the excuse it's because of our teamwork. But I know the real reason, Arrow ni. Which made the one-eyed ninja face fault. Come now, Kakashi-san. That isn't true, is it? Asked Hiruzen with an incredulous look. Kakashi sheepishly scratched the back of his head. Of course not, Hokage-sama. You know I would never do that. I just believed it would be better for them to have more training together before we had a C rank mission, that is all. Kakashi said while sweating on the inside and cursing Naruto's name and swearing he would get back at the blonde for this. Well, that settles it then. Naruto, go ahead and get down from there. You proved your point. We just received a C rank that'll be perfect for you and your team, Kakashi-san. There is a bridge builder that needs you and your team's protection while he finishes the bridge he is building. Bring in the client, Hiruzen said while Kakashi sighed in defeat, and Naruto jumped and landed beside him and his teammates with a foxy grin. I am definitely gonna get him back for this, Kakashi thought while narrowing his lone eye at his surrogate brother, and Naruto seeing this stuck his tongue out at him, which made Kakashi's eye twitch. About a minute went by, and their client walked into the room. He had gray hair and a beard with dark eyes. He also wore a sleeveless V-neck shirt with an obi, pants, and a pair of sandals. He also carried a towel around his neck and wore a pointed hat on his head. After walking into the room, the group could smell a strong odor of booze, which made the three genin scrunch their noses from the smell. You gave me a bunch of kids to help protect me. What's with that blonde and that dumb look on his face? He asked while taking a swig of his bottle while Naruto had a tick mark on his head from the comment. What was that, you old geezer? Naruto exclaimed while reaching in his kunai pouch before being restrained by his Junin sensei. You heard me, Gaki. What's the deal, Hokage-san? I thought you were gonna get me some real shinobi, not some kids who are trying to play as one. The old man asked incredulously while looking at the aged Hokage. The three genin in question glared at their client at that remark. While yes, they are young, but these kids, as you put it, should do just fine. These genin you see before you are actually the best Konoha has to offer. Their Junin sensei Kakashi here is one of our best elite Junins in the village. I am pretty sure they can handle a couple of bandits and the such if you came across any on your travels and while building your bridge, Tazuna-san. Hiruzen said while taking a hit of his pipe while the now named Tazuna only nodded and sighed. Kakashi-san, like I said, you are to escort Tazuna-san here to the land of waves and protect by any means necessary along with your team. It should take about 2 weeks at most, so pack accordingly. And Naruto-kun, don't pull that stunt again. Just ask next time. You're all dismissed, Hiruzen said while the team and Tazuna made their way out of the Hokage Tower. Alright team. Go and pack for at minimum of 2 weeks of supplies and meet at the North Gate in 1 hour. Don't be late, Kakashi said while his team nodded and left. North Gate 1 hour later. Naruto dressed in his new attire along with his black cloak with red flames coming from the bottom. With his sword on his back along with a scroll that had his supplies in his kunai pouch. Sasuke had his normal attire on, the only difference was the sword strapped to his waist and backpack packed with his supplies along with Sakura. They were waiting for the Junin sensei and client who started to walk up and meet with them. Alright, team, is everyone ready? Kakashi asked and received 3 nods in return and a nod from Tazuna. Alright, Team 7, let's roll out, said Kakashi while taking the lead, and his 3 genin and Tazuna followed in suit. Finally a real mission, Naruto thought as he and his team started making their way to the land of waves. Team 7, along with their client Tazuna, was making their way to wave. They were in a diamond formation surrounding Tazuna, Naruto in the front, Sakura and Sasuke to his right and left respectfully, and Kakashi in the rear. They made small talk to help pass the time. They were slowly trudging along at a slow pace, and in the distance, Kakashi and Naruto noticed a puddle. Weird. It hasn't rained in days, they both thought as they continued past the puddle. Once past the puddle, 2 figures emerged from the puddle. They both had shoulder-length, dark brown hair and dark eyes. They wore a rebreather that covered the lower half of their face and a large, clawed, gauntlet which had a chain coming out of it that had the other end attached to the other's own gauntlet. They both wore a camouflage suit with bandages around their waist, dark-colored, knee-length sandals and a ragged black cape. They both had Kurigakure forehead protectors on. Without giving warning, the chains shot forward and wrapped around Kakashi, who had a shocked look on his face, and before he could react, the Kiri shinobi pulled and tore Kakashi to shreds, which shocked the bridge builder and Sakura. Without hesitation, Naruto unsheathed his sword and raced towards the shinobi, while Sasuke followed suit. Before the Kiri shinobi could react, Naruto was already in front of him, slashing at him in a vertical motion. The Kiri nin with his gauntlet arm went to block, but to his shock and horror the sword went right through like a hot knife through butter, effectively losing his right arm in the process. What the Kiri nin didn't know was that Naruto was using his wind affinity to code his weapon wrong move on the Kiri nin's part. Before the Kiri nin could scream out in pain, Naruto performed a horizontal slash and successfully chopped off the Kiri nin's head, shocking his teammates and the other Kiri nin. Gozu, you bastard, I'll kill you. He was about to charge at our young blonde before Sasuke kicked him and sent him flying, and while he was in the air a black chain with a blood-colored spike wrapped around the Kiri nin and slammed him into the ground, effectively knocking the Kiri nin out cold. It took a second for it to process, but Naruto looked at the now named Gozu with shock in his eyes, realizing he had just killed another human life. He just reacted, and his body moved on itself as if he were on autopilot. Naruto knew what he was getting into the day he started training to be a shinobi with Kakashi, but it just didn't sit right with him. It felt wrong. Naruto was taken out of his thoughts by a hand being placed on his shoulder, none other than his sensei, Kakashi. Kakashi gave him a sad smile and patted him on his back wordlessly, saying, "Everything would be alright." Naruto made his way back to his teammate and Tazuna along with Sasuke, who looked at him with a surprised look. Who could blame him? Naruto just took a life and made it look effortlessly. Sakura was shocked of the situation as well and kicked herself for freezing up. Both her teammates didn't even hesitate for a second, but she did, and she made a promise to herself she would try her best never to do it again. "You alright, Yaki?" asked the bridge builder and received a nod and a sad smile in return. Tazuna couldn't help but feel sorry for the blonde one who was so young already taking a life. "And he took it to protect me," he thought, looking at Naruto. "We thought you were killed, Kakashi-sensei. I'm so happy that you are alright," said Sakura and received an eye smile in return. Kakashi walked up to the downed Kiri nin and dragged him to a tree, and tied him up, splashing some water in his face to try and wake him up to no avail. "You sure did a number on him, Naruto. There's no waking him up. So, Tazuna, would you like to explain why the demon brothers just attacked our team?" Kakashi asked, narrowing his lone eye at Tazuna, who started sweating under the Junin's gaze. "You do know that C ranks are for only bandits and the such that might try and attack you. But shinobi, who are after you, is at minimum of AB rank, and you just had 2 Chunins try and attack us. You lied to us, Tazuna, and I don't tolerate liars. So if you know what's good for you, you will tell us everything, and if I even get a hint that you're lying, I'm taking my team and leaving, and you can fend for yourself," Kakashi said as he looked at Tazuna, who looked at the ground in defeat. Tazuna gave in and told the group the truth. Tazuna revealed that they were indeed after him. Deciding to tell them the whole truth, Tazuna tells them of Gato, the owner of a large corporation, had effectively taken control of his land, and who was pretty much a gang boss. He had drained the Land of Waves economy to suit his own purposes, so Tazuna didn't have the money for a B-ranked mission, and the only thing that can break his hold on the country is the bridge Tazuna was wanting to build. Tazuna wouldn't look at Kakashi after telling him the truth. "Well, Tazuna, while I don't appreciate you lying to us, at least you finally told the truth. But that doesn't mean we will finish the mission. That I'll leave up to my Genin squad. So your fate is in their hands as of this moment. What do you 3 want to do? Continue the mission or head back to Konoha?" asked Kakashi while he looked at his 3 students. "You already know my answer, Kakashi ni. This is our first mission outside of Konoha and it'll be damned if I'll let those scrubs scare me off like that, and besides, even if we run into someone stronger than those guys, you and I are almost on par with one another. So anything they throw at us, we can take head on. This is the experience I need to get stronger, and I'll be damned if I turn my back on people who need Konoha's help, exclaimed Naruto, and Kakashi eyes smiled and nodded and looked at his two teammates. What the Dobi said. I didn't come all the way out here just to turn around with my tail between my legs. I want to continue on with the mission, said Sasuke with a smirk. Kakashi looked at Sakura and noticed she was uncomfortable with the situation. What do you say, Sakura? Everyone has to agree to continue the mission. If you don't want to continue, it's okay, they can send out another team to replace us, said Kakashi while he looked at Sakura and saw all the emotions running across her face. She looked at her team and saw the determined faces of both Sasuke and Naruto. The main reason she was hesitating was because of what Naruto had to do. Would she have to kill someone too? Was she even cut out to be a shinobi? But remembering back to the promise she made to herself, and with a determined look, she looked at her sensei and nodded. Kakashi looked at his team, and an eye smiled. They have come a long way in a month. At least Sakura and Sasuke have. Naruto was always surprising him throughout the years, but this didn't. He already knew the answer before he even asked Naruto. Well, that settles it then. But Tazuna-san, just because we are continuing, does not mean you won't be paying Konoha the correct amount once our mission is completed. And for lying, there will be an extra fee. Do I make myself clear? Kakashi said while biting his thumb and going through hand seals, and Tazuna nodded in return. Summoning jutsu, Kakashi said, and there was a poof of smoke, and once the smoke cleared, a miniature pug with a Konoha 8 was in its place. You called Kakashi, said the miniature pug in a gruff voice, and Sakura, along with Tazuna, looked on in shock. That dog can talk, they both thought. Yes, Pakun, take this scroll to Hokage-sama. Our mission has just got a little more complicated. Everything is fine, but if I need backup, I just want someone on standby if need be. Finished Kakashi while he tossed the scroll to the now named Pakun, who caught it in his mouth. Sure thing, Kakashi-san. Oh hey Naruto, how have you been? Asked Pakun while his tail wagged after he saw Naruto. I've been good, it's good to see you again. Oh, I got something for you. Digs in his kunai pouch. Here it is, Naruto said as he pulled out a piece of some dried meat. Pakun dropped the scroll and Naruto tossed it to Pakun, who caught it and swallowed it without even chewing said treat. Thanks, Naruto. I'll be going now, later, Pakun said, and picked the scroll back up and saluted Kakashi before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Okay everyone, let's move out, said Kakashi as they continued their mission. 8 hours later, Team 7, along with their client Tazuna, made their way and got on a small charter boat that he arranged with an old friend. As they were getting closer to Wave Country, it was getting more and more foggy, almost to the point where it was getting harder to see. They were on the boat for about 45 minutes when a partially built bridge came into view. Tazuna-san, is that the bridge you're building? Asked Naruto and was amazed at the workmanship of the well-crafted bridge. Yeah, Yaki. That is the bridge that will open many doors for my country and hopefully end Gato's reign, said Tazuna with a smile on his face. While Naruto and Tazuna were talking, Kakashi couldn't get a sinking feeling from out of his gut. He felt like he was being watched, and it wasn't sitting right with the silver-haired Junin. Something wasn't right, and he didn't like it. We are here. It's time to move. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura be on guard, don't lose focus for even a second. Do you all understand? Said Kakashi and received 3 nods in return. They made their way off the ship and stayed in the same formation as before. They continued like that for about 20 more minutes, and the fog was getting denser and denser, and it was to the point where the group couldn't see even 5 foot in front themselves. Naruto sensed something to his left, and he had thrown a chakra-induced kunai. But what he thrown his weapon at was nothing more than a bunny. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he kept his senses at the max as he scanned the area. At least the areas he could see before activated his Shinwagon, not liking what was going on. Naruto, you almost killed a harmless bunny. What has gotten into you? What happened to your eyes, Naruto? Asked his pink-haired teammate who couldn't help but stare into his eyes. Sasuke tried to get a look at Naruto's eyes too but couldn't get a good look because of the fog they were stuck in. I'll tell you later, Sakura. Kakashi-sensei, there's chakra laced into this fog. Someone is propose everyone get down. Naruto yelled, and everyone jumped straight down to their bellies while Naruto unsheathed his sword and deflected a huge sword that just tried and dismembered his entire team and himself. The sword lodged itself into a tree about 8 meters from the Team 7 and Tazuna. A man appeared standing on the handle of the blade while the fog cleared up a little so the party could see the man who had just tried to kill them all. Zabuza was a tall and noticeably muscular man with light grayish skin, short spiky black hair, dark brown eyes, and small eyebrows. He was wearing bandages like a mask over the bottom half of his face. He wore a Kiri Hitai sideways on his head. He was shirtless, with his chest only covered by a belt and wearing baggy pants with the striped pattern typical of Kurigakure and mimetic wrist warmers extending up to his elbows, with matching leg warmers. You got balls, brat. Deflecting my Kubikiribocho like you did. Not many have done that, and I survived. I shouldn't be surprised though seeing who your Junin sensei is. Sharingan no Kakashi. Said the man in a gruff voice. Kakashi eyed the man and said, Momochi Zabuza the Kurigakure no Kijin. Why am I not surprised? The demon brothers were a dead giveaway, but I was hoping we didn't have to run into you now. This mission has definitely gotten more serious. Kakashi grabbed his Hitai and lifted it up, revealing a Sharingan that shocked Sasuke. Sasuke also noticed Naruto's Dojutsu and was shocked he had one. He didn't recognize it, but it seemed like, the dead last, was full of surprises. You honor me, Kakashi, on showing me the Sharingan so soon. So I'm assuming you aren't going to hand over the bridge builder? Said Zabuza with a bloodthirsty grin. Not that you could see it with the bandages and all. Not on your life, Kakashi said with narrowed eyes, pulling out a kunai and holding it in a crossed guard grip. I wished this could have been under better circumstances, Kakashi, but I was hired for a job and I intend. Zabuza was cut off as he ducked underneath of a black sword slashing through where his head was not even a second before, and he gripped the handle of his sword before pulling an acrobatic twist and kicking the blonde sword wielder only for him to use his leg as a springboard, jumping and landed back with his team. Damn, I thought I had him there. Naruto muttered, shocking his two teammates and even Zabuza. Naruto, this isn't someone I would have tried that against. Don't try to rush. You caught him off guard, but that won't work again. Let me handle this one. Don't be reckless like that again, said Kakashi, not taking his eyes off of Zabuza. Naruto replied with a, "Hi sensei," and left it at that. He's fast, even faster than Haku. That was unexpected. If I was even a half a second late, my head would have been rolling. I'll have to keep an eye on that Gaki. Zabuza thought to himself as he went through a couple hand seals, and the mist got thicker to the point Team 7 couldn't even see in front of them. 8 points. Larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jugular, subclavian artery, kidneys and heart. Zabuza said, but to everyone's surprise his voice was coming from everywhere. Which one wants to be my first kill? He said again as the killing intent in the area was overwhelming to the point Sasuke grabbed a kunai and was ready to kill himself only to be stopped by Kakashi. Don't worry, Sasuke. We aren't gonna die here today, and I won't let anything happen to you or the rest of the team. I promise, Kakashi said, and it seemed to work as Sasuke got himself under control. Naruto put his fingers in a cross and exclaimed, Kage Bushin. Before anyone realized, there was a miniature army of cage bushins surrounding the group. Naruto made 100 bushins in all, but 4 of them went out into the mist and tried to locate the missing nin. Naruto looked at the other 4 and said, "You know what to do." And the 4 clones nodded and surrounded the bridge builder and his 2 other teammates at 4 points and clapped their hands together and slammed their hands to the ground and exclaimed, "For red yang formation." A red barrier rose up and surrounded the 3 in 8 by 8 area and extended out at an angle at the 4 corners to seal in the bushins so they couldn't get dispelled. Quick thinking, Naruto. How long can you keep that barrier up? Asked Kakashi as they both stood back to back. Long enough to take this out. Naruto replied before continuing, he is decimating my clones. He has already destroyed half of them, and I can't exactly pinpoint where he is because of this damn mist. Somebody just wanted a damn C rank. And here we are back to back, trying not to die. I could have been reading that new ICHA book relaxing at home, but no, I'm here with you in this Kami Forsaken mist. Kakashi said, narrowing his eyes and scanning the area. But I thought that wasn't the reason why you didn't want to get us a C rank, it was because of teamwork, as you put it. You see, you told Tazuna you didn't like liars and look at you lying. I guess you don't like yourself very much, huh, Arrow Knee. There goes my last clone, get ready, said our favorite blonde while gripping his sword firmly, preparing for what's to come. I didn't lie, I fibbed. There's a difference. But you, Kakashi was cut off but blocking a strike that would have surely cut him in half. Wouldn't understand that because you are still just a gaki. Naruto blocked a couple strikes and replied back, oh, I understand perfectly fine, you're just a pervert and a lazy ass. You fibbed. That's still lying, jackass. Naruto exclaimed while blocking another overhead slash that would have surely killed Kakashi and Naruto in one swing. Naruto language. Kakashi said using his kunai to help block the overhead slash. Someone is trying to kill us and you're worried about my language? Asked Naruto as he threw a kick towards the missing nin who dodged and went back into the mist. Yeah, what gives? Kakashi lay off of the gaki already. Zabuza voiced echoed throughout the mist. See, even he is agreeing with me. Thanks, said Naruto with a smirk and received a no problem, as both Kakashi and Naruto had to duck underneath a horizontal slash that would have surely killed them. Naruto, no fraternizing with the enemy, exclaimed Kakashi only to receive a roll of the eyes from Naruto. Not that he could see him, shit, he could hardly see his hand in front of his face. I'm tired of this damn fog. Hey Zabuza Tem, can you ease up on this mist jutsu you're doing so I can stick you with my sword already? Asked Naruto only to have to block another strike. Those strikes that Zabuza was throwing out were something fierce. No, I don't think so, Gaki, replied Zabuza. Well, it was worth a shot, I guess, said Naruto surveying the area. Alright, enough of this already, said Naruto before going through hand seals. Wind style. Violent whirlwind. Naruto produced a powerful stream of wind from his mouth around the area. It was strong to clear some of the mist, but to Naruto's disdain the mist reappeared as if it never left. I hate this. Kakashi, is there anything you have in mind? Asked Naruto as he heard chuckling from the mist. Working on it. As he said that, Kakashi and Naruto were both kicked in the chest and sent flying and landed on a small lake about 10 meters away. Your mind, Zabuza said as he appeared behind Kakashi, finishing his hand seals and trapping him in an orb of water. Water style. Water prison jutsu. Zabuza finished with his hand attached to the orb of water with a smirk on his face. Shit, thought Naruto and his sensei. It seems I won this round, Sharingan no Kakashi. Tell the blonde to drop the barrier, and I'll kill you quickly along with your gakis. Zabuza said matter-of-factly in his gruff voice without taking his eyes off of our favorite blonde. I don't think so, Zabuza Tem, said Naruto as he dug in his kunai pouch, and without a second thought, he had thrown 8 shuriken before going through hand seals. Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu! Exclaimed Naruto as the 8 shuriken turned into 40 and headed for the Kiri Nin. Mizu Bushin no Jutsu! Zabuza said, and 5 clones appeared and knocked the shurikens away. Nice try. But you are gonna have to try harder than that, said Zabuza as his Mizu Bushin stood in front of Zabuza, getting ready to skewer Naruto. Naruto went through more hand seals and finished in the snake seal and yelled, Mokuden Haijutsu, Jukai Koden, would release, nativity of a world of trees. To Zabuza's shock, trees start rising from the water at a fast pace heading towards him and his Mizu Bushins. Zabuza had to end his jutsu holding Kakashi and jumped away. His Bushins didn't react in time and were destroyed by the forest. Kakashi appeared next to Naruto while trying to regain his breath. Naruto continued his jutsu and was trying to at least subdue the missing nin. Zabuza, for better or worse, was running for his life and not to get caught or tripped up in the Blood's Mokuden jutsu. How could that blonde have a Kekkei Genkei that was related to the Shidaime Hokage? He thought it was lost the day that he died. It seemed Konoha kept him a secret. No wonder he was so fast. He was probably trained the day he was born. Zabuza lost concentration for a split second, and that was all Naruto needed as he ensnarled him by the ankle, and once his ankle was in one of Mokuden's branches, both arms and his other ankle was ensnarled as he was held in the air by the thick branches with his arms and legs spread out. Zabuza tried to break free but to no avail. Got him. You're up, Kakashi-sensei, Naruto proclaimed as Kakashi went through hand seals of his own. Suryuden no Jutsu, water style. Water Dragon Jutsu. Kakashi finished as massive a water dragon was molded from the lake they were on and shot towards the Kiri Nin, whose eyes widened as the dragon made direct impact with Zabuza, breaking him from the branches of the Mokuden and sent him careening across the battlefield before Zabuza's back hit a tree that stopped his descent and sent bark flying, leaving an imprint of Zabuza's body in the tree. Zabuza tried to get up but he was pretty sure he broke a few ribs and had some internal bleeding. Naruto and Kakashi made their way to the downed Zabuza as he shakingly looked up to the 2 shinobi who defeated him. Wasn't expecting the Mokuden from Ugaki, I got careless, cough. Zabuza said. Naruto didn't reply as he lifted his sword to end the Kiri Nin, but before he could there was a whistle in the air that alarmed both Naruto and Kakashi, but to their surprise whatever it was hit Zabuza and the missing nin fell onto his side, presumably dead. A shinobi appeared, and the shinobi's outfit consisted of the standard Kurigakure pinstriped outfit, which stopped at their knees. Over this, they wore a green haori with white trimmings, and around their waist, a brown sash with a fringed trail wrapped around his waist twice. They had long hair that was tied into a bun and had brown sandals. They also wore a hunter nin mask, which was white with thin, curved eye holes and a red wavy design in place of the mouth, as well as the Kurigakure symbol etched on the top. The Kiri Nin walked over to Zabuza and checked his pulse before looking over to the duo and said, "Thank you. I've been tracking him for a while now. Thank you for your assistance, Konoha Nin-san. I'll dispose of the body and be going now." The hunter nin bent down and picked up Zabuza before disappearing in a shunshin. Both Naruto and Kakashi sighed in relief before Naruto asked, "Wait, I thought Kiri hunter nins were supposed to dispose of the body where they killed them." Kakashi looked at his protege and pulled down his hitai and replied, "They are." Naruto sighed and asked, "So I'm assuming we will be seeing them again?" and received a nod in return. Naruto sighed at that, hoping that it would have been over. They made their way back to the group, and Naruto dispelled the Bushins effectively, ending the barrier. As they were making their way back, the mist started clearing up, and Naruto deactivated his shinwagon. "What the hell, Dobi? I could have helped the 2 of you. Why did you leave me in the barrier with these 2? Sasuke asked, incredulously narrowing his eyes at his blonde teammate. "The main reason is because if Kakashi and I both died, we could have weakened him enough for you to hold him back so Tazuna had enough time to escape. But don't worry, We all will get another chance to get a crack at him, and he isn't alone. Naruto replied while sheepishly scratching the back of his head. That answer was good enough to put Sasuke at ease and nodded with a smirk. Sakura had a worried look on her face about them having to face an adversary like that again. Tazuna was thankful he was still breathing and was thankful to the Konoha squad, giving him the chance to finish his bridge. Since that is dealt with, we can head to my house so you all can get some much-needed rest, said Tazuna with an appreciated smile. How far are we away before we reach your house, Tazuna-san? Asked Kakashi. About an hour, replied Tazuna and received a nod in return. Let's continue then before someone else comes and tries to kill us, said Kakashi and received 4 nods in return, and they made their way to Tazuna's house. Like Tazuna said, they made it to his house within an hour, without any other shinobi after Tazuna and Team 7. So maybe Zabuza were the only ones who were hired to kill their client. Why couldn't this mission be a simple one? It was only supposed to be AC rank and now it was at a minimum of AA rank as long as no other missing nin were after their client. Once they made it home, Tazuna's daughter ran up to him and gave him a hug. She had long dark blue-colored hair. She wore a short-sleeved pink shirt with the end of the sleeves and the collar being red in color. She also wore a long blue skirt. Tsunami, I'm okay. Thanks to these Konoha shinobi. Without them, I wouldn't have made it back. Tazuna said while he pulled back from the hug. Kakashi and Team 7 introduced themselves to the bridge builder's daughter who bowed and thanked the 4. We have a room for the 4 of you upstairs, last door on the right. Why don't you all get settled in and relax? Tsunami will make us dinner. I'll send my grandson up to come and get you when the food is ready. Tazuna said with a smile as Team 7 nodded and headed upstairs of the house. Team 7 settled in and unpacked. Before Kakashi's team could get comfortable, he said, "Okay, listen up, you 3, which gained the attention of his genin team. Zabuza will be back, and it would seem he isn't alone. If I had to guess, we have about a week before Zabuza, and that Hunter Nin will come back to try and finish the job. With that being said, we will have shifts who will guard Tazuna, and during that time, whoever isn't on shift, will be getting in some much-needed training. That means you too, Naruto, because he will be extra cautious of you now even though with your capabilities I still believe you are the better shinobi than Zabuza, but the only issue is that you lack the experience and patience. Something you must have when facing an opponent such as Zabuza or it will be your downfall. Sasuke and Sakura, you both have mastered the tree walking exercise thanks to Naruto, but now you too will master the water walking exercise. Granted, I don't believe it will take you both a week to complete it. So once you two are finished with the water walking exercise, I will show you both how to apply chakra to your legs and arms to increase your speed and power." Both Sasuke and Sakura nodded with determined looks. Kakashi was surprised he didn't get any pushback from Sakura. Maybe the seriousness of the situation on this mission changed her perspective a little. Now that he thought about it, he hadn't heard her squeal once over Sasuke, since the demon brothers tried to attack him and his team. Maybe this mission was good for all of them in the end, even though he'd prefer it was under better circumstances. But that was the life that they signed up for. Always expect the unexpected. And the way this mission has gone so far has been highly unexpected. Kakashi continued, "Now Naruto, I have something special in mind for you. You are just gonna have to wait and see." Kakashi finished with an eye smile. Naruto instinctively shivered. That couldn't be good. Hopefully, he didn't have to climb the side of a mountain with a boulder tied to him again, right? Right. Naruto shivered at the thought. Now, with all that being said, the first watch will be Naruto. The second watch will be Sasuke and Sakura, and I'll take the third. We will work 4-hour shifts, and when it comes time for us, for our rematch with Zabuza. Sasuke and Naruto, you have the Hunter Nin, and I'll take on Zabuza. Sakura, You will protect the client. Naruto will use that seal again to protect both Sakura and Tazuna. Sasuke, you follow Naruto's lead, and you should be fine. I have faith in all of you, so don't be nervous, trust your instinct, and just know that I won't let any of you die on my watch. And I intend to keep that promise. Kakashi finished with a reassuring eye smile. The three genins smiled back at their Junin sensei. Both Sasuke and Sakura felt reassured with Kakashi's speech and were thankful for his little talk because they needed to hear that. Why don't you all get some rest? We have been traveling non-stop, and you three need your rest. I'll wake you when the food is ready. Kakashi said, and they weren't gonna say no, so they all got in their sleep sacks and passed out. Night time. After they got their much-needed rest, Team 7 was awakened by a knock at the door and was greeted by a young boy who looked at the group with disdain in his young eyes. This must have been Inari, Tazuna's grandson. Inari had spiky black hair and dark-colored eyes. He wore a green jumpsuit with a yellow shirt and a simple pair of sandals. He also wore a blue and white striped hat. He looked to be 8 or 9 years old. Food's ready, Inari said with a sneer. The group was taken aback by this, wondering what the hell crawled up his ass. Well, at least that was what Naruto thought. Inari left and went back downstairs before anyone could reply. The group looked at each other before they followed suit. Sasuke, why don't you help him remove that stick out of his ass? Because if I have to deal with that for the next couple weeks, I'ma shove my foot in his ass. Naruto whispered to Sasuke, who raised his eyebrow at the blonde. Why does it have to be me? Why can't you do it? Sasuke whispered back with a perplexed look. Because you had so much practice of removing your own. Naruto snickered after he said that. Shut up, Dobi, Sasuke said as a tick mark appeared on his forehead. Hey, what are you two whispering about? Asked their pink-haired teammate as they were walking up to the table. Nothing, haha, replied both her raven-haired and blonde teammate replied. As their one-eyed Junin sensei I smiled at his team's interaction. He was happy they had been getting along. Sasuke was the biggest surprise. He would actually interact with both of his teammates and not just a simple response of, But Kakashi couldn't take all the credit. It was all Naruto. The blonde had that effect on people he noticed since he had taken him under his wing. The dinner was uneventful other than the grandson of Tazuna. He would give dirty looks to the Konoha nin while they made conversation with each other or Tazuna and Tsunami. It irked Naruto, but he left it alone for the time being, but if it was gonna be like that for the next couple of weeks, he knew he would put the child in his place. He didn't want to, but they were there to help his grandfather and country. He'd be damned if he's gonna be mistreated by a child when they were just trying to help. After dinner, Team 7 and Tazuna's family went off to bed. Naruto, who couldn't sleep, decided to sneak out of the window and sit on the roof as he pulled out the seal he had been working on for the past year on and off. He had been stumped with the seal. He could probably use the shinwagon, but he wanted to do this himself out of respect to his father. He was missing something, and he couldn't figure out what it was, and he felt like it was something simple. It had been like that for the last couple of weeks. It was the last section that would connect the seal array together and it drove Naruto nuts, but what was it? What are you doing, Dobi? Are you drawing? Asked his raven-haired teammate who was standing behind the blonde looking over Naruto's shoulder, which brought Naruto out of his thoughts. What this? Naruto showed Sasuke the complex sealing array on the slip of paper that looked like it was almost completed from Sasuke's point of view and replied with a nod. Let's just say it was a gift for me to figure out left by my 2-san that was feared and could change the outcome of any battle when he stepped foot on it, with this. This was his gift to me, and if I'm able to figure it out, let's just say I'll be able to do the same. Naruto said cryptically and received a raised eyebrow in return. You're 2-san. I thought you were an orphan. Asked Sasuke, and the blonde gave him a blank stare. Yeah, I am an orphan, but I know who my parents were, Sasuke Tem. Naruto said with a sad smile, something that Sasuke picked up on. Do you mind if I ask who they were? Asked Sasuke as he sat down next to our favorite blonde. What's the sudden interest in the dead last, Tem? Naruto asked, which gave Sasuke a tick mark. You and I both know that is nothing but a title. And I was just curious, it's been a while since I just sat back and thought of my family. The only thing I thought about for so long and what I've trained every day for was to kill. Sasuke stopped himself as his anger started to overcome him just thinking about it. To kill your niece-san, right? Itachi, was it? Asked Naruto, and Sasuke clenched his fists to the point that blood started dripping from his palms and gritted his teeth. Sasuke could only nod, afraid to use his words. I'm sorry that happened to you, Sasuke. I met your brother once. Sasuke whipped his head at Naruto after that comment. I could tell he was very strong, but him doing that was kinda out of character, was it not? At least, that was what I thought. The way he talked about Konoha, he seemed so loyal to the village, said Naruto as he rubbed his chin in thought. Well, he wasn't. In the end, he was just after more power. He killed our family for power. At least, that was what he told me. Sasuke said through gritted teeth. Sasuke, to this day, still didn't understand why. But one day he would get his answers no matter what. They sat like that for a couple minutes, and Naruto decided to change the subject and then asked, so you wanted to know who my two-san was? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. It's none of my business. Replied Sasuke as he stared up at the moon, thinking back to the better days of his two-san and Ka-san. You told me about your past with your brother, and you didn't have to. But once I tell you, you can't tell anyone. Can I trust you with this, Sasuke? Naruto finished. He was putting a lot of faith in his raven-haired teammate, but he wanted to earn Sasuke's trust, but he would need to have to trust Sasuke too. Yeah, sure, I promise. I mean, who else do I really even talk to? I keep to myself most of the time anyway. But I won't tell anyone, even Sakura, you have my word. Replied Sasuke, and Naruto watched him with a critical eye before he nodded. My two-san was one of the strongest shinobi Konoha had ever produced. He also was the one who almost single-handedly won the Third Shinobi World War. He decimated an entire battalion from Iwagakure that consisted of 1,000 shinobi before they met their end. The only thing they saw was a yellow flash before it was too late. My two-san was the Konoha no Kiroi Senko, or you might know him as the Yondaime Hokage. Namikaze Minato was my two-san. Naruto finished with a sad smile before Sasuke's raised his eyes in shock. Now that Naruto mentioned it, the Yondaime and Naruto looked like they could be twins. He felt kind of stupid for not putting two and two together. That makes sense, Sasuke said as he looked back up at the moon without saying anything else. Naruto face faulted at that. That's it. That's all he had to say after all he had to say about his father. Naruto started crying anime tears and cursed Sasuke's name. I hate you, Tem. I made it all dramatic, and you just had to ruin it. And to Naruto's surprise, Sasuke started to laugh. It was weird. Naruto never heard his raven-haired teammate laugh, not even in all the years when they were at the academy together. And it wasn't just a laugh, it was a laugh that was uncontrollable, and he was wheezing. Naruto started to join him, and they were like that for a few minutes. When they started to come down from their laughing fits, one would pick it back up and they both lost it again, and it got to the point they laughed so hard tears started to fall from their eyes as if they were crying. Inside, Kakashi could hear the laughter from inside the room and couldn't help but have a smile on his face. He was happy for both Naruto and Sasuke finding friendship with one another. It reminded him of his old teammates Obito and Rin, but by the time he came around and stopped acting all stuck up, it was too late. One of the one-eyed Junin's biggest regrets. He was happy Naruto wasn't like himself at the beginning of his shinobi career. Kakashi rolled over in his sleeping bag before closing his eyes to go to sleep. Back with Naruto and Sasuke. After coming down from their laughing fits, Sasuke looked over at Naruto, and it looked like he wanted to ask the blonde something else. Something Naruto picked up on. What is it, Tem? Asked Naruto as he was still looking at the seal and trying to figure out what was missing. Sakura asked you something when we were fighting Zabuza. About your eyes. What was she referring to? Asked Sasuke. Oh, that. Since you're my best buddy now, I guess I could tell you. It's my Dojutsu. It's called the Shinwagon. Naruto replied as he looked at Sasuke and activated his Shinwagon to show he wasn't lying. Sasuke looked at Naruto's eyes in shock. He examined them and couldn't help feel a little jealous just because of the fact that he hadn't activated his Sharingan. The Shinwagon? I've never heard of it before, replied Sasuke, who tried to think back, but nothing came to mind. Yeah, there's nothing in the history books, so it's no surprise you haven't. Hell, not even Hokage Gigi knew about it until I awakened it. Out of the Uzumaki clan, I'm only the second to awaken this Dojutsu. Naruto replied with his chest puffed out to show how awesome he was. That's cool and all, it still isn't better than the Sharingan. So what does it do? Asked Sasuke with a curious look on his face. Naruto looked over at Sasuke and only smirked and said, now that would be telling, wouldn't it, haha. Naruto finished and noticed Sasuke eyebrow twitching. I hate you, Dobi, said Sasuke with his eyebrow, still twitching and only received a boisterous laugh in return. Sasuke couldn't help but join in. They were like that for another minute or so before Sasuke stood up to leave. Well, alright Dobi, keep your secrets, I am going to get some sleep. Later, said Sasuke, and Naruto nodded before looking at the seal he was working on before putting it back in his cloak pocket. He was about to follow suit until he heard something. It almost sounded like someone was crying. Naruto left the spot he was sitting at and crept his way around Tazuna's house's roof until he peeked into a window that was on the opposite side of their room. He saw Inari on his hands and knees trying to cry quietly but failing miserably at it. Naruto noticed there was a picture in his hand but couldn't get a good look at it. He thought he heard Inari say something on the lines of, "Why did you have to die, Too-san?" but he couldn't be too sure. But it would explain why he was acting like an ass towards them. Maybe an enemy shinobi was sent after him, like how they were being sent after Tazuna. This Gato fella was some piece of work. That man would have to die if this village wanted to go back to normal. Something Naruto would do without hesitation to get rid of that scum. Naruto looked back at Inari one last time before making his way back to his team's room and go to sleep himself. It was gonna be a long week, so he knew he needed his rest. The next morning, Naruto was guarding Tazuna on the bridge while the rest of Team 7 was getting some tea training in with their one-eyed sensei. Naruto's shift was getting close to being over, and during that time he was meditating. When he started his shift he was surprised to how many people were helping with the bridge, and it was much. This Gato fella must be scared the rest of the village because only a handful of villagers showed up. Something Tazuna wasn't happy about, but he understood. People had families and he didn't blame them for not putting them at risk. Good thing he had a whiskered blonde shinobi that he hired who didn't mind to help. After Naruto saw this, he created 100 cage bushins to help mitigate the losses he had for the people who didn't show up. And let's just say Tazuna was excited with all the extra set of hands. If the blonde Gaki could keep this up, he could be done in half the time, if not sooner. He thanked Kami for this team. Maybe they weren't just a bunch of Gakis after all, at least not Naruto. Soon enough, they would be out from under Gato's thumb, and his village could thrive again. Naruto felt the presence of Sakura and Sasuke, which they were both soaking wet well. Sasuke mostly. walked up both with a baffled look on their faces at all the blondes running around. They were either hammering the wooden boards into place to cutting wood and fetching the supplies back and forth to all the workers. It looked like they were working like a well-oiled machine with no hint of stopping anytime soon. The original Naruto stood up, patted himself down, and waved at the two. Before they could ask any questions, he shunshin away in a swirl of wind. Show off, Sasuke thought with a smirk as both he and Sakura looked on at all the Narutos and the workers' work. With Naruto arrived at his destination via shunshin and looked around the field he believed his sensei was at. He looked over at a tree and saw Kakashi perched up on a tree branch with his feet kicked up, reading his favorite book. Yo, Kakashi ni, so what is the training you got planned for me? Asked the blonde, getting his sensei's attention. With a snap of his book, he jumped off the tree branch and landed in front of Naruto. Well, first things first, how far are you in the lighting manipulation? Asked the silver-haired shinobi. I'm able to crinkle it, but it isn't fast enough like yours. I will probably get it done in about a week, if not sooner, replied Naruto as he picked up a leaf and was able to crinkle the leaf in about 6 seconds. Yeah, I believe you are correct. But I think that's good enough with what I'm about to teach you. Granted, you don't need to master any of the first 2 steps of the lighting manipulation to learn this, it just makes it easier for you. Watch closely, said Kakashi as he went through hand seals slowly. Ushi, U, Suru, Tatsu, Ne, Tori, Ushi, Mi, Inu, Tora, Suru. Once Kakashi was finished, there was a high concentration of electricity emitted from his hand that sounded like birds chirping. This is the Chidori, Naruto. You've seen me use it before, but this is it up close. The only downside is that it'll give you tunnel vision, but for me to counteract that, I have the Sharingan. I believe you could do the same with your Shinwagon. This is my gift to you. It was my own personal creation, and the only time you should ever use this is against enemy shinobi you plan to kill. Do not use this against your comrades. I personally don't believe you would, but that is my only condition, said Kakashi as he released his Chidori, and it disappeared and saw Naruto with stars in his eyes and nodded. This will be tricky for you, but I believe you will be able to learn it by the time Zabuza comes back. I'll need your help the most if the shit hits the fan while facing them and whoever else he brings. Now, once you start to see the lightning start crackling in your hand, apply a good amount of chakra, and it should flare to life. Once you start hearing the chirping, you will know when you have completed the Chidori properly, finished Kakashi as he reached into his kunai pouch, pulled out his book, and jumped back up to his spot on the tree he was at before. Naruto went through the hand seals, and once he finished, he only created a spark of electricity before it faded away. Naruto frowned at that, but getting an idea, he put his fingers in the cross formation and exclaimed, Kage Bushin no Jutsu, and 20 bushins of Naruto appeared in a cloud of smoke. You know what to do. Let's complete this before the end of the week, exclaimed Naruto and received salutes in return before they all got to work. Of course he had to take the fun out of it and cheat using the Kage Bushins, but I don't blame him either. If he's going that route, then he could probably finish the technique by tomorrow. Only time will tell, thought Kakashi as he lazily flipped a page of his book. Naruto continued his training in mastering the Chidori and didn't stop even when it reached nightfall. Kakashi left for his shift with Tazuna a few hours ago and he was still chucking away. Naruto was getting close to finishing up and he couldn't lie, doing this for multiple hours took a toll on him and he was spent. He dismissed his Kage Bushins and got a little dizzy from all the information that he received back from them. He was about to make his trek back to Tazuna's house before he suddenly started to receive all the Bushins' memories from the bridge. He forgot about those, and with them going for the last 12 hours non-stop, it was a lot of information, and Naruto simply passed out in the field he was training in. With no one the wiser. The next day, early morning, a girl was walking through a wooden pasture before she reached where she was going. She wore her long hair loosely and wore a pink, sleeveless kimono, with pale red edges that were decorated with small plum-colored swirls that went to her ankles. Around her waist was a simple white obi tied in a bow, and she wore a pair of light brown sandals with dark straps. She also had a dark-colored choker around her neck and had a basket in hand. Once she reached her destination, she looked around at all the different plants as if she were looking for something in particular. But as she was looking, she noticed a younger boy who had blonde hair and was that whisker marks. She made her way over to the boy and bent down and took a closer look at him. He was wearing a Hittite with Konoha's emblem on it. She narrowed her eyes at that as she started to reach out with her right hand, and it looked like her hand was going for his neck. Before she even realized what happened, her hand was grabbed with a firm grip, and cerulean blue eyes looked up at her. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. I was about to try and wake you up. It's chilly out, and I didn't want you to catch your death out here," she said with a startled smile. Naruto looked at the girl and could tell she was a little older than him. He was still a little groggy but was kind of surprised he didn't feel her presence sooner. Maybe he just overdid it yesterday. He looked at the girl sheepishly. "Sorry about that. Thank you for waking me. My name is Naruto. What's your name?" asked the blonde as he sat up in a sitting position and Haku took a couple steps back before joining our favorite blonde. "It's nice to meet you, Naruto-san. My name is Haku. Are you a Konoha shinobi?" asked the now-named Haku, and Naruto nodded with a foxy grin while adjusting his Hittite. "So you must be strong then?" asked Haku with a smile. "I don't want to toot my own horn, but I can handle myself rather well. There's always room for improvement, though, but it seems like I overdid it last night," said Naruto somewhat sheepishly as he scratched the back of his head, and Haku giggled at that. "Why do you still train if you're already strong? What is it that you fight for you to still train?" asked Haku with a perplexed look on her face. "Well, to get stronger, of course, so I can protect the people I care for and for my home. Also, for those who can't protect themselves from the people like that Gato guy. I will always train to get stronger because I don't want the people I care for or protecting to get hurt, especially if I could have prevented it. There's always room for improvement, and I'll always strive to get better. Because that is my Nindo my shinobi way," said Naruto without taking his eyes off of Haku, who smiled at his statement. When Naruto made that Gato comment, he noticed a slight twitch from Haku. It was small, but he noticed it. Maybe it was because of what he had done to this land, the blonde concluded. "So you fight to protect your precious people?" she asked and received a nod in return from the whiskered blonde. "I believe when a person has something precious they want to protect, then they become truly strong. Fighting to protect others and the people that you love and your home is an honorable thing that you should be proud of," she said with a soft smile as she stood up and picked her basket up. "Are you leaving?" asked Naruto. "Yes, I have to get back to my precious person. I came out here to look for some herbs for them. He got hurt, so I was just looking for some to help speed up the recovery," she replied with a wave goodbye and started to walk away before turning back and saying, "By the way, Naruto, I'm a boy." Naruto had the eyes of saucers after that statement. There was no way that was a boy, and that's when he noticed it. The way that he walked, he didn't make a sound, and Naruto rose an eyebrow at that. Before Haku made 30 feet from Naruto, a kunai embedded into a tree a few feet away from Haku, who snapped his head back at the blonde. He didn't even sense or hear Naruto do that. "I'll be seeing you, Haku. I hope Zabuza-tem isn't too banged up from what we did to him. I thought it was a little suspicious of me not being able to sense you earlier. That last comment gave you away and you're not even making a sound when you walk. You also have the same build as that hunter Nin from the other day, same hair, and from what I recall, the same voice. Now it all makes sense. But don't worry, I'll save it for when we fight the two of you again. It sucks because I was just starting to like you. Naruto stated with a stone-cold look, making Haku flinch and look down with a sad look. As was I. I wish I could tell you that the next time we would be seeing each other was under better circumstances, but you know as do I that would be a lie. Goodbye, Naruto-san, he said with a sad smile before dashing off into the trees, and Naruto sighed. If someone said it was easy being a shinobi, even they would know that they were lying. Why did this mission have to be so complicated? Naruto mused to himself before diapering in a swirl of wind. Later that afternoon, Naruto already worked his shift and guarded Tazuna and went on without a hitch. But he didn't create as many cage bushins for the master bridge builder as he did the day prior, but he still created around 30, which Tazuna didn't complain at all. They were still a big help. After his two teammates relieved him of his shift, he went back to the field. He met Haku at and saw Kakashi in the same spot as yesterday. He told him of the interaction with Haku, and Kakashi only nodded and said at least he was alright, even though he knew he could handle himself. But at least it did confirm Zabuza would be back, so he had to look forward to that again. After talking to his surrogate brother, Naruto continued working on the Chidori. He was getting really close. It was just hard to sustain the jutsu in his hand. With his cage bushin's help, he figured he could master it by the end of the day or tomorrow. Kakashi was right, though when he started to form the Chidori, his eyesight started to tunnel out like he was looking through a straw just about. But as soon as he activated his Shinwagon, it went away, so using the jutsu wouldn't be a hindrance in the field. By the end of the day, he was able to use the Chidori about 75% of the time, so with a little more training, he would have mastered the Chidori by the next afternoon. His arm and hand had some form of burn marks and discoloration, so he decided to wrap bandages around his arm just above the elbow to cover them. He'd probably leave it like that until his arm got used to the Chidori being used. They were at dinner laughing, joking, talking about training, and the near-completed bridge, everyone enjoying themselves. Everyone except Inari. Inari was gritting his teeth as tears started to form at the brim of his eyes, and he slammed his hands on the table, getting everyone's attention. All of you are training for nothing. Gato will kill all of you with the army that he has. All these cool things you say don't mean anything or what you do. The strong always win, and the weak will always lose. No matter what you do, he is just going to keep sending people and kill all of you. Exclaimed Inari as he looked at the group, and Naruto narrowed his eyes at the young boy. I guess you're speaking for yourself. That's some victim mentality you got right there. That isn't gonna happen to us because we can fight back, and we will win and defeat Gato. Naruto said, trying to stay calm and reminding himself he is just a naive kid. The rest of Team 7 looked at the blonde, and they all knew he wasn't going to sit by any longer and let Tazuna's grandson walk over them anymore. Just shut up. Looking at all of you are gonna make me sick. Always laughing and playing around, and you don't know anything about our country. You don't know what it's like to suffer and be treated like trash. Inari finished with tears falling from his eyes. Naruto gave the boy a stone-cold expression and looked Inari in the eyes, and the boy flinched and instinctively took a step back. Everyone at this table has had more hardship than you, Yaki. You're a coward just like everyone else who was willing to bend the knee to Gato and let him win instead of fighting for your country. Your Gigi is trying to fight for it, but what are you doing just acting like a victim? Out of everyone at this table, I know just how it feels to be treated like trash. I've been treated like that the day I was born for something that was out of my control. You don't hear me complaining about it, do you? So how about you shut the hell up and go cry somewhere else? Come back when you are ready to fight to make a difference and lose that victim mentality. Naruto said as he gave Inari an icy glare. After Naruto said that, Inari ran outside crying. Naruto. You went too far, Sakura said, looking at him with narrowed eyes. Naruto, deciding to leave and not deal with Sakura's banter, left in a swirl of wind. The swirl of wind ended up knocking off some of the food and plates, effectively ruining dinner. Everyone just sat there for a couple minutes, and then Tazuna told everyone about Kaiza, who was like a father figure to young Inari, and how he tried to fight back against Gato. He told them all how Kaiza got caught by Gato's men and he was killed, and it was a big spectacle in front of the entire village, including Inari. That was the day that Inari changed from the sweet boy to now. Kakashi spoke up. I'm sorry for Naruto's outburst and what he said to your grandson Tazuna-san. I'll talk to him later about it. No, I believe Inari needed to hear that. I wish it was more subtle, but hopefully, that'll open up Inari's eyes. Tazuna said with a sad look as he looked at the door Inari ran through, and Kakashi only nodded. Kakashi-sensei, what did Naruto say about being treated like trash the day he was born? What did he mean? Is it true? Asked Sakura as she looked over at her sensei, and so did everyone else at the table. That isn't my place to tell, but he wasn't lying. If you'll excuse me, I'll go and talk to Inari and see how he's doing, said Kakashi as he left the room in search of the young boy. While the rest of Team 7 pondered about their blonde-haired teammate. With Kakashi, Kakashi found Inari on a dock on the water with his legs dangling from the edge, crying. Kakashi got his attention and sat next to Inari, which got his attention. He told him what type of person Naruto was. How he didn't have anyone, not even a mother or father or even a friend, growing up until Kakashi started to look after him. He was looked at as a pariah for something that was out of his control, and he was mistreated by the villagers, and shinobi would stoop as low to try and harm him. Which shocked the young boy. How is he still so cheerful after all the things that happened to him? Asked the boy with a shocked expression. Because that's who Naruto is. He never backs down, and he always fights back. One day, he will prove all of his doubters wrong. One of his dreams is to be respected by the villagers, and he would put his life on the line for that. He got tired of crying and decided to do something about it. Even though he's not much older than you, he knows what it means to be strong. Like your father did. I think he knows better than any of us of what you're going through. What Naruto told you earlier, as cruel as it sounded, he probably told himself that multiple times. Kakashi said as he smiled at the little boy, who gave a small smile in return. That talk with the silver-haired shinobi opened the young boy's eyes. He promised to himself that he was done crying and he needed to fight back. Just like his father. He also saw Naruto in a new light. The blonde was a lot stronger than him, and he had been through a lot more than he had. He was dealt a shitty hand, but that didn't stop him, and it wasn't going to stop Inari anymore. With Naruto. Naruto was still pissed about what happened not too long ago, but Sakura was right, he did. But that little Gaki needed to hear it. He was sitting on the tree branch that Kakashi would normally sit on in the lotus position, trying to clear his mind. After a couple of minutes, he started to notice a dripping sound like there was a leaking pipe. Weird, he thought to himself, but kept his eyes closed, and then he heard it again and decided to open his eyes. What the hell? Where am I? Asked Naruto as he looked around, and it looked like he was in some type of sewer that was filled with water that was about ankle deep. Naruto noticed there was only one path in a hallway, and it was in front of him. But he could sense an ominous chakra coming from that way. Instead of backing down, he decided to head that way to this feeling. As Naruto was making his way closer to the ominous chakra, it was getting stronger. He never felt something chakra like this, at least this potent. He continued on until he reached to very large barred gates with intricate seals surrounding it. There were tree branches and his black chains going around the perimeter of the cage as if it was another layer of protection of keeping at bay of whatever was inside that cage. But Naruto had an idea of what it was. Naruto saw massive orange tails swinging back and forth as the light started to illuminate what was in the cage. So my flesh bag of a container decided to finally show his face. Whatever was inside grumbled. Its massive form stood up and walked over to the bars of its cell and its piercing red eyes with slits staring back at shocked cerulean blue. A shocked Naruto was looking up at the great Kyuubi no Yoko. The strongest of all 9 Biju, and he was face to face with the great beast. The Biju that almost destroyed Konoha and that had killed many shinobi and civilians 13 years ago, including his parents. The Kyuubi was a red-orange colored kitsune with black fur around its red eyes that stretched up to its ears and 9 long tails. It also had an upper body structure of a human, complete with opposable thumbs on its clawed hands. Kyuubi. Naruto could only say as he examined the monstrous Biju who was glaring at him. What is it that you want? Or were you going to let me out of this prison so I can be on my way? Said the Kyuubi with malice ever present in its voice. I didn't want anything. I was just meditating, and now here I am. You and I both know I can't do that because, for starters, I will die, said Naruto with a raised eyebrow as he sat down in front of the Kyuubi's prison cell. Who cares if you die? I just want to be free. But of course, your two-san had to seal me away again into another Uzumaki. Your race never changes, always seeking power to kill and conquer. But out of all the containers I've been sealed into and the humans that I had the displeasure in meeting besides one, you feel different. Where is your hate? I can't feel any hate coming from you. I never could. I reap of malice and destruction, but I could never play off your emotions. Why is it that you don't hate? You should with everything that you've been through. The Kyuubi finished with an intrigued gruff voice. I don't know, I just don't. What some of the things the villagers have done to me and even some shinobi are unforgivable to most. I just couldn't hate them because they were acting out of fear. They were fearful of me because of you. I don't hate you either, even if you think that I should because of the life that I've lived. I'll prove everyone wrong that has ever doubted me or wronged me. Hate will only bring one suffering, and life is too short to hate, especially as a shinobi. And besides, hating someone would be too troublesome, so I just don't, replied Naruto, looking into the Kyuubi's red-slitted eyes and not breaking eye contact with the great beast. The Kyuubi snorted before laying down and resting his head on one of his arms in a lazy fashion while closing his eyes. And besides, my life hasn't been all bad. I've had a few people to always encourage me. I'm pretty sure you have seen some of my life, haven't you? Yeah, you are sealed away, but we will always be interconnected if we like it or not. We didn't ask for this, but it happened. Life likes to deal shitty hands sometimes, but you have to make the best out of it. Naruto said with a smile, and one of the Kyuubi's eyes was open to show he was listening. You're a very naive child. In the end, you humans are all the same. Power-hungry fools are what you all are. You will try and take my power for yourself as all the others have. To take and use as you please, as I will have to sit here in my prison and wait until you wither away and die. In the end, you will end up as the rest, and I'll be in my next flesh bag of a container, the Kyuubi said with a snort, making the blonde raise an eyebrow. I would prefer we could just work together. I never planned on taking your power for myself, but you already knew that, didn't you? Us working together would be more beneficial for us. I mean, it's not like you aren't really doing anything anyway, so why not help me out? Even if we didn't ask for this, we can still work together. Naruto said with a smile, but the Kyuubi just frowned. Why would I want to do that? How about this? You rip that seal off and let me out so I can be free, the Kyuubi said with narrowed eyes, making the blonde just sigh before he had an idea. How about we make a deal? The blonde Jinchuriki asked, getting the Kyuubi's attention. Speak. The great beast said, willing to listen to what the blonde had to say. I'll probably live for about 85 years, maybe a little longer if I don't die out in the field. That isn't really long for you since you can live forever, I'm assuming. So how about this? Before I die, I'll set you free. But in return, you help me. So it's a win-win situation for you. And you have my word, said Naruto as he looked at the large kitsune with anticipation. You amuse me, child. And if I say no? Asked the Kyuubi as he pondered on what his container said. If you say no, the day that I die, you die with me. I'm pretty good with seals, as you know, so I'll figure out a way where you can't come back, the blonde said with a shrug of his shoulders. So it's an ultimatum then? Asked the Kyuubi with gritted teeth. He couldn't believe the audacity of this child. On the contrary, I'm either giving you freedom if you help me, or death if you don't, said the blonde in a matter-of-fact tone, making the Kyuubi snort. The Kyuubi thought on it, and if he helped the blonde, he would earn his long-awaited freedom. He knew the blonde wasn't lying, and he would set him free. What was the worst thing that could happen? He also seemed different compared to the others. He was still annoying to him, but all the humans were with their little nuances. In the end, the blonde would set him free. Fine. I agree to your terms, Kit. But there is something you need to know. To access my full power one day, you will have to take that seal off. You aren't ready for that, and besides, you will still need to earn my trust before I even let you attempt that, said the Kyuubi with a huff, making the blonde grin ear to ear. Great. So, how does this work then? What if I needed a boost or your help? How would I be able to tap into your chakra? Asked Naruto with a quizzical face while tapping his chin. The Kyuubi looked at the grinning blonde with a calculated eye. It would be interesting to see how the blonde would react using his chakra. Both of his containers before could hardly handle it. He thought on it for a second before he made up his mind. Just ask, and I will flood my chakra into your coils. Would you like to get a feel of what my power entails so you can prepare yourself later? Asked the Kyuubi with a raised eyebrow, making the blonde think for a second before nodding, making the Kyuubi smirk, showing his long fangs. There was some sort of red chakra that started leaking out from the cage, and it started to surround Naruto in a vortex before it slowly seeped into the blonde. Naruto felt a rush of chakra into his chakra coils that made him wince in pain. The power that he felt was amazing, even if it stung a little. But the chakra was filled with malice, like he wanted to destroy everything in his path. He shook his head from that thought and controlled his breathing and relaxed his muscles. He looked at his hands and noticed his fingernails grew, sharp claw-like nails, and he had some red cloak around his entire body. He looked behind himself and noticed he had one tail behind him, which he thought was intriguing. This is one tail worth of my chakra. I'm actually quite surprised with how you adjusted to it. That is what my chakra feels like, Kit. Now leave me, said the Kyuubi as he closed his eyes, and Naruto stood up and looked around the room before scratching the back of his head sheepishly as the chakra receded back to the seal on his stomach. Haha, how do I leave? Naruto asked nervously, and the Kyuubi opened one eye and effectively kicked Naruto out of his mindscape. He's a interesting child. He's different from the others. Only time will tell if I made a mistake or not. The Kyuubi mused before closing his lone eye while he thought about his interaction with the blonde. With Naruto. Naruto wasn't prepared for that, so after he was kicked out rather aggressively, he might add, from his mindscape, the tree branch he was sitting on in the lotus position, he fell off and landed on his head. The blonde rubbed his now sore head and started calling the Kyuubi every curse in the book. I can hear you, you know, said the Kyuubi, startling the blonde as he looked around and made sure there wasn't a gigantic kitsune running about. I'm talking to you through your mindscape. Stop looking around. If someone sees you, they're gonna think you're crazy, the Kyuubi said with a huff, making the blonde nod. If you could talk to me through my mindscape, why didn't you do it sooner? Asked the blonde out loud, making the Kyuubi roll its eyes. You don't have to talk out loud. Just think it, and I'll hear it. And because I didn't want to. The Kyuubi simply said, making the whiskered blonde sweat drop. Naruto didn't respond effectively, ending the conversation. Naruto started making his way back to Tazuna's house via Shunshin. Naruto appeared in a swirl of wind and noticed his surrogate brother waiting for him outside, leaning up against the side of Tazuna's house. Yo, Kakashi ni. I'm sorry for what happened earlier and I won't have another outburst like that again. But I have something to tell you and I don't want you to freak out, said Naruto with an excited tone, making the Junin narrow his lone eye a little before telling Naruto to continue. I met the Kyuubi, said the blonde, and Kakashi nodded before realizing what Naruto actually said. Wait, you what? Kakashi exclaimed, making Naruto scratch the back of his head sheepishly before explaining everything that happened, leaving out the part where he would set the Kyuubi free when he died. Kakashi could only shake his head in shock. So he agreed to work with you then? Asked Kakashi as he rubbed his temple, feeling a headache coming from what his blonde protege told him. Yeah, surprisingly, he did. Remember when we went to Uzushiogakure and Arashi Jiji told me to come back once I met the Kyuubi? Asked Naruto, and Kakashi nodded but gave Naruto a stern look before Naruto sighed. That's not what I was gonna ask, Kakashi ni. Once we were finished with the mission and we were back in Konoha, I was gonna ask Hokage Jiji if he could send me out once we get back. If that was okay with you? Asked Naruto with pleading eyes, and it was Kakashi's turn to sigh. Yes, Naruto, that is fine. This time, though, you are probably gonna make the trip by yourself unless we can find another Junin to go with you. But knowing you, you'd probably want to go alone for this. And I have responsibilities as a Junin sensei now, and Sasuke and Sakura can't be left behind like that. Kakashi said, and the blonde nodded, agreeing with the one-eyed shinobi. Also, Naruto, next time if you're gonna have an outburst like that again, go easy on them. Inari is just a child, but with what you said and me telling the boy the type of person you are, I think he turned over a new leaf, said the copy ninja, making the whiskered blonde raise an eyebrow at that statement. What did you tell him about me? Asked Naruto as Kakashi peered his eye over to the blonde as they walked into Tazuna's house. The truth. Let's get some rest. You have to be up bright and early for your shift tomorrow with Tazuna, said Kakashi, and Naruto just nodded, knowing his sensei wasn't gonna tell him what he told Inari. 4 days later. It was the day before on the projected day of when Zabuza and the hunter nin named Haku would be coming back to finish the job of killing Tazuna. Naruto was the only one upstairs sleeping while the rest of his team and Tazuna went to the bridge to continue working on it. Naruto finished mastering the Chidori, and so he decided to maintain the guard duty while Sasuke and Sakura could get extra training for a couple more days. From what Kakashi said, they made a giant leap compared to when they started the mission they were on, and they both picked up everything rather quickly. Kakashi was rather impressed with Sakura because he showed her how to apply chakra to her limbs, and when she punched the boulder she was practicing on, she left a giant spider web crack. Which made the blonde happy for her even though he subconsciously gulped. Kakashi also told him about Sasuke taking a little longer on the water walking exercise, but he completed it on the second day. He wasn't able to crack the boulder like Sakura, so he focused on increasing his speed by applying chakra to his legs. It was rather useful, but he was only able to do it in short bursts so he would exhaust his reserves. He was sleeping in on this day because the rest of Team 7 decided to give Naruto a day off. He worked 3 12-hour shifts consecutively, so they told him to get his rest so he would be well rested for the next day. Naruto didn't object to that and he was gonna take the day to relax and be lazy for once. That was until he heard Tsunami scream from the downstairs kitchen, and he jumped up. He grabbed his sword and dashed downstairs, and he saw Inari standing in front of his mother in a protective manner, as there were two thugs with swords standing at the front door with sinister smirks. Look at this kid trying to protect his mother, haha. Let's just kill him and take the woman. Gato only told us to take one hostage to have leverage over the bridge builder. One of the thugs said, and the other nodded with a sinister grin. I don't think so. Everyone in the room snapped their heads to the stairs and saw our favorite blonde with a pissed off expression, making the two thugs laugh. It's just another kid. Oh look, he has a sword. What are you gonna do with that little guy? Why don't you put the katana down before you hurt yourself? One of the thugs said condescendingly, making the blonde smirk. Why don't you come and try and take it? Unless you're scared too. Naruto said mockingly as he waved the sword back and forth, egging on the two thugs, and it seemed to work as they both gritted their teeth. One thug charged Naruto with his sword over his head, and before he could swing his blade down to kill the blonde, Naruto disappeared and reappeared in front of the thug with his leg extended out, kicking the thug in the gut and sent him flying through the front door, shocking the second thug. Naruto looked over to the second thug and crouched down with his hand on his sheathed katana, and before anyone could react, the blonde disappeared and reappeared behind the thug with his sword unsheathed extended out. He resheathed his katana slowly, and once it made a click, a large gash appeared on the thug's chest before falling face first, presumably dead. Naruto summoned 10 cage bushins before Inari and Tsunami processed what just happened. You both go into town and stay safe. My bushins will protect you if the need arises. I have to go now. Good job on protecting your Ka-san, Inari, but I'll take it from here. Naruto said. Before they could reply, the blonde disappeared in a swirl of wind. After Naruto was gone, both Inari and Tsunami ran out of the house, and they saw the first thug knocked unconscious laying on the ground. Inari, for the first time in a long time, had hope in his young eyes. Go get them, Naruto ni, thought the young Inari with a smile on his face. With Team 7 on the bridge, Kakashi, along with his two genins and their client, just reached the bridge and noticed there was a mist surrounding the area. They looked around and noticed that Chizuna's workers were all laying around the bridge near the entrance, with senbons sticking out of their neck. Kakashi looked forward on the bridge and saw two figures, one with an exceptionally long sword. Zabuza, I see that you made a full recovery. You also brought that fake hunter nin with you, said the copy ninja, making the missing nin lift his kubikiribocho and rested it on his shoulder. Yeah, it would seem so, Kakashi. You and that blonde gaki with the Mokuden did a number on me. Who would have thought that Konohagakure had another Mokuden user? It's too bad he couldn't make it. I would have loved to cleave him in two. I guess once we are done with you three and the bridge builder, I'll pay him a visit, said Zabuza as he flared his killing intent with a sadistic grin, even though you couldn't see it with the bandages covering his face. Mokuden, what is that, Kakashi-sensei? Asked the pink kid, but the question was ignored by her sensei. Sasuke, you take the hunter nin. Take your time, because you can't afford making mistakes with him or you will be killed. Do not hesitate if you see an opening. Sakura, you stay with Chizuna, and whatever you do not leave his side no matter what. I have Zabuza, said Kakashi as he lifted his Hitai up, revealing his Sharingan eye. What about Naruto? What about our plan that we made? Sakura asked, nerves ever present in her voice. Plans change, Sakura. Naruto will be here, and once he does, he will know what to do. Sasuke, if you can't defeat the hunter nin, try to stall. Trust your instincts. Finished Kakashi, and Sasuke nodded in return with a smirk on his face. I'll be able to defeat him. Don't worry, Kakashi-sensei, said Sasuke, drawing a kunai as he finished, and Kakashi did the same. The mist started to get thicker, but Team 7 were still able to see the two figures before Zabuza dashed forward along with his protege, and Kakashi and Sasuke followed suit. With Kakashi, Zabuza swung his blade overhead, intent on cutting the one-eyed shinobi in half. Kakashi dodged to the left before kicking the missing nin in the stomach, sending Zabuza flying back a few meters before righting himself midair and landing in a crouch. Zabuza had to jump back as Kakashi was already upon him, as he made a vertical slash with a kunai in hand. After dodging, Zabuza went through hand seals and noticed Kakashi was doing the same before they shouted, "Water release, Water Dragon Jutsu." Two massive water dragons rose from the river underneath the bridge before they shot forward, colliding with one another and burst in a rain of water. As the rain was falling from the cancelled-out water dragons, Kakashi appeared behind the missing nin and stabbed him in the back only for water to leak out of the wound. Zabuza bursted into water before the original appeared behind Kakashi and cleaved him in two only for the copy ninja to turn into water. Zabuza brought his blade up and blocked a slash from the copy ninja with his Kubikiribocho and pushed the Sharingan-wielding ninja back a few meters. The two shinobi eyed each other before Zabuza stabbed his sword into the bridge with a grin. "That Sharingan is gonna be a problem. Good thing I have something to counteract that, hey," said Zabuza before going through a couple of hand seals, and the mist started to get thicker to the point Kakashi couldn't see 5 feet in front of him. "Here, I thought you were gonna face me, face to face. I guess I was wrong," said the copy ninja as he raised his kunai just in time to block the massive sword of Zabuza. "Yes, you were. I have the advantage inside this mist. Silent killing is my speciality after all." Zabuza echoed throughout the mist, making it so Kakashi couldn't pinpoint his location. "I hate this jutsu. I can't see anything, which makes my Sharingan useless. There has to be something I can do," Kakashi mused to himself before ducking underneath an overhead slash of the missing nin. The deadly game of cat and mouse had just begun. With Sasuke. After Sasuke rushed forward to meet his adversary, they met with steel meeting. Ice. Sasuke was shocked the hunter nin was using ice as a sword but got over it as the mask-wearing shinobi tried to stab him. Sasuke jumped back before throwing a handful of shuriken only to be met by Senbons only for one of them to get by and pierced Sasuke in the leg. Sasuke grunted in pain and plucked the Senbon out of his leg and ducking underneath the ice weapon of his enemy. Sasuke and the hunter nin fought back and forth to try and get a feel for the other and to see if the other would make a mistake. The hunter nin shifted to another gear as he picked up the pace, and the only way the raven-haired genin could keep up was if he pumped chakra to his legs and arms, something he was still getting used to. The hunter nin overextended on a punch, and that was what Sasuke was waiting for. Sasuke capitalized on his opening. Sasuke kicked the hunter nin in the gut, sending the hunter nin flying before going through hand seals and ended on the tiger seal. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. As Sasuke sent a fireball at the masked shinobi, and out of nowhere a ice mirror appeared, and to Sasuke's shock the mask-wearing nin materialized in the mirror showing his reflection. Sasuke smirked before throwing a kunai with a paper bomb attached to it at the ice mirror, exploding on contact. Once the smoke cleared, the smirk on Sasuke's face disappeared as the ice mirror showed no signs of damage. Before Sasuke could react, more of the same ice mirrors materialized surrounding the raven-haired genin, and before he knew it he was in a dome of ice. Hyoten style. Demonic mirroring ice crystals. Finished the hunter nin. Sasuke darted his eyes back and forth between the mirrors, trying to figure out where the masked nin would attack from. Each mirror showed a reflection of the hunter nin as the masked shinobi pulled 3 Senbon out and launched them at the Konoha genin. Sasuke was surprised when multitudes of Senbon started raining down upon him. Sasuke tried to dodge as many as he could, and to his surprise, it almost seemed like the Senbon started to slow down, and he could even predict on their intended targeted area. He wasn't fortunate enough to dodge every single Senbon, as he had half of a dozen land true on his person. Sasuke grunted in pain but stood standing, not letting the Senbons deter him from the task at hand. Sharingan. No wonder you were able to dodge so many. But it matters not. Your defeat was cemented as soon as I trapped you in here with me. There is nothing you can do. Give up. said the hunter Nin, and saw that Sasuke smirked in defiance and prepared himself for what was to come next. So be it, said the masked shinobi, releasing dozens upon dozens of senbons at Sasuke, who started blocking them with his kunai only for a couple more to hit their marks on the young Uchiha. With Naruto. Naruto appeared in gust of wind in front of the bridge only to see the thick mist as before when they faced Zabuza 6 days prior. Naruto dashed forward and put his hands in the cross seal. 4 copies of the blonde appeared in a puff of smoke. They located Tazuna and a worried-looking Sakura, and before they could say anything the Bushins surrounded the two before erecting the same barrier they made before. Naruto saw a small glint in the distance and dashed forward towards it before coming to a dome of ice, mirrors, and squeezing through. Naruto surveyed the area, and one of the things he noticed was Sasuke barely standing up on his 2 feet. Sasuke had dozens of senbons sticking out of his body. Naruto appeared next to Sasuke and placed a hand on his shoulder, startling the raven-haired shinobi. Sasuke turned and looked Naruto in the eyes, and Naruto noticed that Sasuke awoken his Sharingan. He must have been pushed to the limit to awaken them. What took you so long, Dob? He was cut off as the raven-haired boy passed out and fell into Naruto's arms. Naruto gritted his teeth and picked Sasuke up, and threw him over his shoulder. Naruto disappeared from view in a burst of speed, shocking Haku, who couldn't react in time. Naruto appeared beside the barrier with Sasuke before laying down the unconscious Uchiha. Sasuke-kun. Is he dead? The pinkett screeched, making Tazuna wince from the loud outburst of Sakura. He's only knocked out, Sakura. I'm going back to finish off that hunter Nin, Naruto said as the barrier deactivated and appeared once again, but this time Sasuke was inside, and Sakura rushed over to him and placed the raven-haired Uchiha's head gingerly in her lap. Naruto unsheathed his katana as he started making his way back to Haku. He didn't have to go far since Haku deactivated his ice mirrors and met him face to face. Naruto activated his Shinwagon as Haku started creating a sword made of ice. Naruto's eyes started glowing, and the whirlpool in his eyes was spinning as his eyes took everything in from the simple jutsu Haku just showed him. Naruto saw how Haku mixed both water and wind affinities in perfect synchronization to create the sword of ice. Naruto, wanting to test it out if what Arashi said was true, and started mixing both affinities the same as Haku did, and to his delight a sword of ice appeared in his left hand, making the blonde smirk, leaving the hunter Nin stunned. How? Are you a part of the Yuki clan? Asked a shocked Haku, making the blonde smirk. No, Haku, I'm not. Let's just say copying Kekkei Genkai is my specialty. Long story short, if I master the first 2 steps of the elemental affinities, I can copy the Kekkei Genkai at will and use it just as powerful as the initial user. But if I don't have them mastered, I wouldn't be able to, said Naruto as he twisted his katana and the sword of ice in his hands in a reverse grip, preparing himself to face the ice user. The Hyoten user shook off his shock as he had to bring up his blade just in the nick of time to block Naruto's katana. Haku had to shift to his left to dodge the ice blade that would have stabbed him in his gut. Naruto did a spinning back kick, and Haku had just enough time to bring his hands up in an X to block. Haku skidded back a few feet before he had to backflip away to dodge Naruto again before going through hand seals, and to his shock, Naruto was performing the same. Hyoten release. 1,000 flying ice needles of death. They both proclaimed as long ice needles formed all around both shinobi. They shot all the ice needles at each other, but they cancelled each other out in a shower of ice. Stop copying me, exclaimed a frustrated Haku, which was out of character of the more stoic teenager. Why would I do that? Asked a smirking blonde, and Haku went through more hand seals, and like before, a dome of ice mirrors appeared all around the blonde. Haku materialized into one of the mirrors as the blonde couldn't control the full-on grin that graced his face as he dodged the onslaught of senbons that came his way and deflected the rest with his 2 blades. You know I can do the same now, right? Asked the blonde with the same grin ever present on his face, only for Haku to tilt his head in confusion. The confusion turned into shock after the realization hit Haku. Don't worry. I don't know what will happen if I try to get in the mirrors with you. Besides, I'd like to see what this jutsu can do firsthand. You better hurry because you are running low on chakra. From what I can tell as well is that this jutsu eats away a lot of your reserves. So you better hurry. Naruto said with a smirk, griping his blades firmly as 8 black chains shot out of the bridge surrounding the blonde in a circle evenly spread out from each other. Haku didn't respond as the onslaught of senbons were being thrown at the blonde from every direction. The black chakra chains started whipping around his person, knocking the majority of the senbons away from Naruto harmlessly to the ground. Naruto spinning both blades in circular motions, blocking the remaining senbons that got past his chains. Haku, not believing what he just witnessed, continued throwing the remaining senbon he had, to try and neutralize the blonde, but to no avail. It didn't matter what he did. He couldn't get through the blonde's defense, and when he tried jumping to another mirror, one of the chakra chains latched around his ankle. The black chain whipped around the masked nin before slamming Haku into the bridge, effectively knocking the air out of his lungs. The ice mirrors surrounding the two shattered all around them, and before Haku could blink, he was thrown into the air by the chain. Haku was soaring up into the air and Naruto appeared above the hunter nin as a swirling sound could be heard by the latter, and Haku noticed a blue spinning orb of chakra in the blonde's hand. Time to finish this. Rasengan. The blonde yelled and shoved the spinning orb into Haku's gut. Haku was sent careening back below to the bridge, his back hitting first, which created spider web cracks in the thick wooden boards. The shockwave of Naruto's Rasengan dispersed the mist in the surrounding area for a brief moment before coming right back like it never left. The mask on Haku's face slid off and fell beside him as the blonde landed beside Haku and saw he was unconscious with a smoking hole in his shirt where the Rasengan hit its mark. Naruto pulled out some ninja wire and tied up the boy so he didn't get any ideas before leaving to find Kakashi. Kit, that flesh bag of a sensei is 35 meters behind you, said the Kyuubi, making the blonde jump slightly. It was gonna be some time before he got used to that. Naruto was about to dash off in that direction before an idea came to mind as he smirked. The blonde hanged himself into Haku, making himself look identical to the hunter nin, mask, and all. Naruto dashed forward until he was close enough to his sensei and Zabuza, who were interlocked with one another kunai against Kubikiribocho. Both Kakashi and Zabuza had some small cuts throughout their bodies. Kakashi had a slash mark across his torso with blood staining his Junin vest, but it wasn't anything life-threatening. He went through the hand seals for demonic ice mirrors, and a sheet of ice appeared in front of him floating. Naruto took a deep breath before slowing entering the mirror. The next thing both the missing nin and the copycat ninja saw was a dome of ice mirrors surrounding the pair, making Zabuza smirk as he saw his protege reflections in the mirrors throughout. It seems like my tool has beaten your little genin, Kakashi. Give up and hand me the bridge builder so I can finish my job. Or I can just kill you and finish my mission afterward. Zabuza said as Haku walked out of the mirrors beside his comrade, making Kakashi raise an eyebrow towards the hunter nin. You and I both know I can't do that, Zabuza. You would have to kill me to finish your mission, but it's too bad you aren't gonna be able to. Isn't that right, Naruto? Kakashi finished, and before the missing nin could react, black chakra chains erupted from the bridge behind Zabuza and pierced him through both of his shoulders, splashing blood towards Kakashi. Zabuza dropped his Kubikiribocho, losing the use of his arms, and Naruto kicked him behind his knee, making the missing nin fall to his knees, as the chains tightened so he couldn't move, making Zabuza grunt in pain. The mist started to clear from the bridge rapidly before disappearing altogether. Zabuza had a face of shock. How could this child have Mokuden and Hyoten? It just didn't make sense. What type of monster was this genin? But then that brought him to his next thought, Haku. Was he dead? Hey, I guess you are right, Kakashi. It looks like I lost this battle. I'm assuming you killed Haku, Yaki? Asked Zabuza, glancing over at Naruto, who disabled his henge and had a smirk on his face. He patted himself on the back, thinking of that on the fly. Even fooling a Junin of all people. No, but he's only knocked out and he's not gonna be able to move around for the next couple of days. Naruto said as he eyed the Junin, who seemed to sigh in relief, something both Naruto and his sensei picked up on. For someone who called him a tool, you seemed relieved he's still alive. All this bravado you give off isn't fooling anyone. You care for him, don't you, Zabuza-tem? Asked the blonde, making the missing nin narrow his eyes. I don't think it really matters what I feel given the situation I'm in, Yaki. My time has come. Finish it, Kakashi. Said Zabuza as he raised his head and had a slight smile on his face, accepting his inevitable end. Kakashi went through a familiar set of hand seals, and the sounds of birds chirping could be heard in the area. Kakashi was about to end the life of Zabuza but stopped when he heard the sound of someone clapping. The group turned towards the edge of the unfinished bridge and saw a large group of thugs, probably just over 100. There was a short man who stood in front of the large group, Gato. Gato had shaggy brown hair and had a pair of small, circular black glasses. He wore a black suit with a purple tie with pointed black dress shoes and a black cane. He was the man who was the founder of Gato Shipping Company that secretly dealt drugs on the side and who basically ran Nami no Kuni and was a billionaire because of it. He was the one who had people killed if they ever got out of line and put his business at risk. He was the scum who was destroying this country and its families that lived in it. Well, Zabuza. How the mighty have fallen, haha. If only they could have finished the job, so I didn't have to see your smug face again along with your brat who sprained my arm. I came here with these men to kill you and your lackey after you killed the bridge builder, but it seems like you failed yet again. These men didn't cost half of what you wanted. It's funny really, you thinking I was actually going to pay you that large sum. You shinobi are foolish and greedy and now you will all die here, ha ha ha. The short man snickered as both Kakashi and Naruto looked at one another before the blonde tossed Kakashi his sword. Kakashi caught it with a raised eyebrow and to his surprise Naruto created two blades of ice shaped like his katana. Release me, Yaki. We are no longer enemies. Said Zabuza in his gruff voice, only for Naruto to shake his head in the negative. No can do, Zabuza-tem. You're in no shape to fight. You'll only get in the way. Kakashi ni and I have got it from here. So you rest up and get some beauty sleep. Said Naruto, which infuriated Zabuza as he glared at the blonde. Naruto put his fingers in the cross-hand seal before shouting, Taju Kage Bushin no Jutsu. To the thug's shock and horror, there were easily 300 clones of the blonde that appeared in a large cloud of smoke. All the thugs took an instinctual step back, looking at all the whiskered blonde-haired Narutos. Don't worry everyone, it's just another one of the shinobi's tricks. Kill them all. Gato shouted, making the thugs think twice before charging at the clones. But what happened next did not go the thugs' way. Carnage. One after another dropped to the ground, either unconscious or dead. Naruto's clones unleashed mayhem onto the thugs and they couldn't do anything about it. And soon enough, after the last thug dropped, the clones that were left turned and faced a scared, helpless Gato. The clones were all dispelled and the only ones that were left was the three shinobi. The chakra chains disappeared and let Zabuza go as the missing nin stood up and looked at Kakashi and the blonde. He's all yours, Zabuza. Do with him as you wish. Kakashi said as Zabuza bit off his bandages and showed his face and his shark-like teeth. Hey, Yaki, toss me a kunai. Said Zabuza and Naruto obliged, tossing him a kunai and the missing nin catching it in his mouth while dashing towards a frightened Gato. Zabuza, I'll pay you double. Try triple. Just let me live. Exclaimed the pint-sized man. Zabuza didn't even acknowledge Gato, fully intent on killing the man. As Zabuza was getting closer and closer, Gato only saw his impending doom as a Hanya mask formed behind Zabuza, showing he was truly the Kurigakure no Kijin. With a final scream from the pint-sized man, it was over. Gato's reign and terror in Nami no Kuni was officially over. Zabuza walked over shakingly. The blood loss was finally making him lightheaded. He saw Haku about 15 yards away and slowly but surely made his way over to him before passing out beside him. Naruto and Kakashi walked over to the pair before picking them up and walking back over to their team. So you copied that one's Kekkei Genkei, huh? Asked Kakashi as he lowered his Hitai-8 over his Sharingan eye. Yeah, I did. How the hell did you know it was me anyway? You ruined my grand entrance. Asked an irritated Naruto, receiving Kakashi's patented eye smile. You forget my Sharingan can see chakra, and on top of that I know your scent, said Kakashi in a matter-of-fact tone, making the blonde frown. You suck, Kakashi ni. I was hoping to scare you a little bit, but you had to ruin all my fun. Pouted Naruto as his surrogate brother ruffled his moppy blonde hair, infuriating Naruto even more. Naruto and Kakashi made it back to the rest of their team along with a passed-out Zabuza and Haku. The barrier that was protecting the three deactivated and the clones dispelled right after. Tazuna had a smile on his face along with Sakura while Sasuke started to stir. Hey everyone, we aren't late, are we? Everyone turned to see Tazuna's grandson Inari waving along with the rest of the town, who were all holding some type of weapon looking to fight for their home country. Tazuna looked at everyone from town and couldn't help but cry tears of joy as he wiped them away with his arm. He couldn't thank Team 7 enough for all that they did, especially Naruto. Later that night, after the past day of events played again in Tazuna's mind, he took another celebratory swig of sake. He felt a burning sensation hit the back of his throat and slowly made its way down his windpipe. Everyone was asleep, but he wanted to relax and celebrate, knowing his home country would be going back to normal and flourish once again. Tazuna didn't know how to feel about Zabuza and Haku staying at his house. Who could blame him? Zabuza was sent to kill him multiple times, but Kakashi put him at ease, telling him he was more of a friend than foe after Zabuza killed his meal ticket. On top of that, he won't be able to use his arms until they were fully healed, courtesy of the blonde genin. He was still uneasy about the situation, but he trusted the Junin. He was about to take another sip of his sake but noticed Naruto coming down the stairs. Naruto walked up to the table and sat down across from Tazuna, and the latter smiled at the boy. Can't sleep, Gak Naruto-san. Corrected Tazuna. He couldn't really call him Gaki anymore, he would show the preteen the respect he deserved. No, not really, Tazuna Oji-san. I actually wanted to ask you something. It's more like me hiring your services, said the blonde, making Tazuna raise an eyebrow at the whiskered Jinchuriki. You need to hire my services. What for exactly? Asked Tazuna. He was interested in what the blonde had to say. Long story short, I need to hire you to help rebuild my ancestors' home. Uzumaki no Sato. It has been in ruins since the beginning of the Third Great Shinobi World War, and I'd like to have it rise from the ashes and return it to its former glory. I have done a lot of cleanup when I was there the last time. I've done a little bit of work to start it off, but there is still plenty to do. Most of the debris and destroyed buildings have been cleared by my part. I've saved some wood and bricks that were salvageable. The only thing left that I need is a master builder. You fit with what I need done. I can make small houses, sure, but you can craft something that I can't, that only a master builder could build. I'll be able to pay you some upfront, probably a good portion on what you are gonna charge me. I have the map right here to get to Ushio, and I can try and get Konoha to hire you an escort if need be. So what do you say? Finished Naruto with a hopeful smile. Tazuna leaned back in his chair as he rubbed his chin, thinking of what the blonde just asked of him. It would be a lot of work, this he already knew. This whiskered blonde, though, saved his country and helped change Inari back into the happy boy he was previously before everything happened. The old man sighed before giving the blonde a nod with a smile. I'll be honored to do it, Naruto-san. We will need a lot of supplies, wood, and the such. I'll be able to start sometime next month and can give you a time frame on when it could be finished once I see what I have to work with. I don't think it would be a problem, especially if you loaned me some of those bushins you lent me on the bridge before. I can send in a submittal with the Hokage on when I will need a long-term escort. Tazuna said with a smile before pulling out another shot glass and pouring some for Naruto and putting it in front of the confused blonde. No offense, Tazuna Oji-san, but I don't think I'm old enough yet for that, said Naruto with a raised eyebrow, which elicited a laugh from the old man. So you're old enough to kill, but not drink a little sake. We just agreed to terms on a deal. This is a part of the deal. So drink, Tazuna said as he lifted his shot glass in front of Naruto. The blonde picked it up and clinked their glasses together. Naruto watched the old man tap it on the table before throwing back the shot and drinking it. Naruto did the same. Naruto started coughing from the burning sensation at the back of his throat. Do people actually drink that? What the hell was wrong with people? It tasted horrible. Tazuna laughed after he saw the blonde's face and said, when you get older, you'll like it a lot more. Why don't you try and get some sleep, Naruto? We still have a bridge to finish. He finished with a smile. Naruto nodded and started making his way to Team 7's room. Hey, Naruto-san, Tazuna said, making the whiskered blonde turn around. The bridge builder continued, thank you for everything you and your team have done for my family and country. We will forever be in your debt as well as Konoha's. Of course. You and your country don't owe us anything, though. Next time, just pay for a higher ranking mission, though hehe. Naruto laughed. Tazuna did the same and nodded at the blonde. Naruto retired for the night and Tazuna did the same not too long after the blonde. 1 week later, Team 7, along with Haku and a bandaged-up Zabuza whose arms were in slings. They were in front of the newly built bridge of Nami no Kuni. All the villagers and Tazuna and his family said their goodbyes to the team that saved their country. Naruto ruffled Inari's head, which made the boy smile as the rest of the team said their goodbyes. The 6 started walking away as they started to talk amongst themselves. So what are your plans now, Zabuza? Kakashi asked looking at the missing nin which gained his attention. Haku and I will play it by ear. Gonna have to wait a while until my arms heal thanks to that gaki of yours. Zabuza said narrowing his eyes at the blonde who sheepishly scratched the back of his head who chuckled nervously. Why don't you just come with us to Konoha? We could put in a good word for you even if you tried to kill us. I know Hokage Gigi would love to have another powerful shinobi in his ranks. What else do y'all have to lose? It's not like you are committed to a village or anything and you would have a place that you could call home. Naruto said looking over at the 2 who pondered on what the blonde just offered. Naruto, you can't just go offering that without discussing it with the Hokage. But he does have a point. He would probably put you on probation for a set period of time until he deemed you trustworthy enough. You can also do as many missions as your heart desires, said Kakashi looking at Zabuza who seemed to be deep in thought. What do you think, Haku? Should we? Asked the gruff voice of Zabuza as he looked at his protege. It would be nice, Zabuza-sama. We wouldn't be on the run anymore and we would have a place that we can call home, said Haku making the missing nin sigh. Sure. Why not? Zabuza said and the blonde grinned ear to ear. So we are just gonna bring them with us, Kakashi-sensei? Asked Sakura with a concerned face making her Junin-sensei smile at her. Yes, Sakura, said Kakashi and left it at that. Naruto turned to Sasuke, which gained the raven-haired Genin's attention. How are you feeling, Tem? I saw that you awakened your Sharingan finally. I know you have got to be excited for that, said the blonde as the Uchiha smirked. Yeah, I'm not feeling as sore as before, and yeah, I am. It's about time that I did, said Sasuke with a smirk, making the blonde laugh. The group talked between each other as they made their way back to Konoha. The mission was completed. The mission was more than they expected, but in the end they made new friends and enemies that became possible comrades. It's funny how that works. Back with Tazuna. Tazuna and his family along with the villagers watched the group of 6 fleeting forms in the distance. Tazuna hasn't felt this happy in a long time. Today marked a new day for his country and he couldn't wait to see the fruits of their labor of what's to come. He was brought out of his thoughts when someone asked, "What are we going to name the bridge?" "What about the Great Tazuna Bridge, haha," he said with a laugh, making his daughter roll her eyes at him. "San, we aren't naming it after you," she said, but couldn't help the smile that graced her face at her father's antics. "And why not? I'm the one who built it," he said with a grin, making her sweat drop and a good portion of the villagers. "What about the Great Naruto Bridge?" said Inari with a smile as everyone looked around between each other and all of them kinda agreed with the boy. "The Great Naruto Bridge, huh?" said Tazuna as he looked in the distance and saw the blonde who was smiling and laughing. "I like that. So do we all agree then?" asked Tazuna and received nods in return as he smiled happily along with his family. "The Great Naruto Bridge it is then."